Hello and welcome back to Politically Incorrect. I'm Tom Christiano. Well, tonight we have an outstanding panel of town leaders, and 3 of them are running for election town-wide here in Chelmsford this year. And we also have a sitting selectman with us tonight. So we're going to have a great show. It's going to be all about Chelmsford. So I'm sure you're going to have a great time if you stay there for the full hour and don't change the channel. So with me tonight we have Barbara Skaar. How are you, Barbara?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Thanks for being back in the show. Only your second time on the show,
yes,
so it's great to see you back here.
Thank you for having me.
And as everyone may know, you're running for school committee this year.
Yes.
And you and Evelyn Thorne are running both for school committee for 2 seats.
Correct.
So this year we have 2 candidates for 2 seats.
Correct.
And also you were a member of the Chelmsford Finance Committee for many years,
Yep,
right,
I
Barbara?
served on the Finance Committee for 4 years. I think I was chair for 2. That was back when Center School was being brought back online. Served on the original Ambulance Study Committee for, it was supposed to be 3 months, it was 3 years.
Wow.
And then got involved in the PTOs, so I've been president of the PTO for 2 years at least at Center, McCarthy, and now at the high school.
And were you the head of some school organization?
I'm president of the
still
Council of Chelmsford Schools as well.
Wonderful.
Which provides parent enrichment programs. We handle the picture contract in town for the school photos, and the proceeds for that fund PTO enrichment programs throughout the community. But we also have speakers who come to address topics we've had. Last year we did one on self-esteem. We did what to do when your child's arrested, if your child's arrested, I should say. We have a couple coming up soon on self-abuse, and we have April Lasky, who is the head of nutrition for Chelmsford, to come in to talk about the school lunch program.
Wonderful.
Which
and to whom do they speak? That is, to the entire student body, or to the parents, or a combination?
It's strictly for parents. I mean, students, I suppose, could come, but our focus is to provide enrichment for parents. And you know, they can come to these, and I encourage every parent for every age group to come, because you may have a neighbor who needs advice sometime. So your child right now may not be into self-abuse, drinking, doing drugs, whatever, but maybe someone in your neighborhood gets involved and you won't know where to turn.
Oh, wonderful.
So it's
and you
good
publicize these events when
as
they take
much
place?
as I can,
as much as you can,
and we do not charge an entrance fee, and we get some terrific speakers. They're really good.
That's wonderful. Well, I hope to see more of them in the future. And you know, there's a Chelmsford Reps and Residents group on Facebook, which you're on.
Yes.
And you're welcome to publicize any events there. I'd love to see them
I will be.
there.
I'm co-chairing the Community Read-In, which is sponsored by the Council of Chelmsford Schools this year, with Tara Traynor, who is a teacher at Harrington School. So now we have teachers who are helping us, which is, you know, my goal is collaboration. So we'll be posting a lot of forms for people to sign up to read in the classrooms, which is always a fun time.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for being here
Thank you for having me,
Barbara. And we also have my friend Pat Wojtas with us tonight. How are you, Pat?
Doing okay, Tom.
And you know, you're getting close to a record, Pat. This is your 20th time on the PI show. Imagine that.
That's close to a record?
Well, close.
It's nowhere close to you.
Correct. This is my 342nd PI show.
Oh, wow. Well, it's going to take me a few years.
So I know. Could you imagine? It's we're almost finishing our 18th year of this show.
Wow.
And instead of growing more hair, I actually have lost more hair during that time. Maybe it was all that worry about this show that's lost my hair, right?
Sure, yeah.
I'm sure
that'll do it. Yeah.
Sure, sure. I worry. No, I'm only kidding. I don't think about the show much at all, as you could tell. So Pat, as everyone knows, is a member of the Chelmsford Board of Selectmen. And how many years has it been now, Pat?
Working on about my 6th.
Your 6th year.
Yeah.
So are you up for next year? Is your
No.
Oh.
No, because remember I had that one split term.
Okay. Yeah.
So I have another 2 years before.
Another 2 years. Great.
Before I need to run again. I just
so
ran
another
last
2
year.
years. And this year you're the clerk of the board, right?
That's correct.
Which means
Yep.
you. Well, what does a clerk do exactly? Or just quickly.
Well, probably the 2 main responsibilities for the clerk is one to edit the minutes that the recording secretary takes to, you know, and put them on the agenda to be approved, and also to take minutes in executive sessions. Because we want to have just the board in the executive session,
great.
so we don't have outsiders. So there's less likelihood of
Yeah.
leaking information.
Yes, leaking anything. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And do you mind that, taking the notes at the executive sessions?
No,
the
it's
minutes?
generally pretty
Okay.
straightforward. You know, we
Because
don't-
almost every meeting you have an executive session, don't you? Or no?
No,
Not that often?
we go through cycles. It seems like, you know, sometimes we'll go 3 or 4 meetings in a row, and then sometimes we'll go 3 months without having one. So it's not that
3 months.
frequent.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
What's the length of a term for a selectman?
3 years.
3 years, same as school committee.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
And you're also a town meeting representative, is that correct?
That's
in
correct.
Precinct 5?
Precinct 5, yep.
And I know you're not running again this year, right? So,
That's right, yep.
And you're also one of the heads and founders of the Military Community Covenant
That's right.
Committee. Any other committees you'd like to mention?
There is one I was going to bring up later, but I can talk about it now if you want.
No, maybe we could talk about it later
Okay,
during the,
sure.
when we talk about Selectmen and other things, okay?
Okay, yep.
Good. Thanks, Pat, for being here. And we have Bob Joyce with us again on the show. How are you, Bob?
Great, Tom.
Your 7th time on the show?
Right.
So how does that feel?
Yeah, it's
You're getting used
good
to it,
average, right?
Yes, about average.
about an
Mickey
average.
Mantle's number. I always think
Right,
of the
Mickey.
big 7 on the back of his,
Right, right,
because I grew up in Connecticut, so the Yankees were the ones that were on TV all the time.
right, right.
And so Bob, as everyone probably knows, is a candidate for the Board of Selectmen this year.
Right.
Well, congratulations. We have 5 candidates running for the 2 seats. We have Matt Hansen, who is a candidate running for re-election, and we have John Curlin's seat, who is not running for re-election this year. So those are the 2 seats that are up this year, and we have 5 candidates. And you were a selectman also in the mid-90s, right,
Right,
Bob?
93 to 96.
And how did you like that?
Well, I liked it, but
Okay.
at the time I owned a business in town,
Right.
so it was a little difficult having a business in town and also being a selectman because it was a retail business and my retail counter became the area where all the complaints came through. So.
Yeah, I could imagine. Hey, let's go complain over there.
Or accolades, I guess, if you want to look
You
at it.
got
on
some
the positive
accolades
side. Oh,
too?
sure.
I hope.
Yeah.
Good, good.
Yeah.
And you didn't run for re-election then, just to let everybody know, right? You
And
just,
no, I did not run for re-election. My kids were younger then, and I really wanted to spend a little more time with them. So
wonderful. And you're also a longtime town meeting representative, right, here in
over the
Chelmsford?
past 20 years, I've served off and on. I think I've only missed like 1 or 2 years
Great, great.
when I was working out of town.
And you're also a current member of the Chelmsford Planning Board, is that correct?
Right. I'm in my 10th year.
Your 10th year already, wow.
And what was funny was during, when I was on the Board of Selectmen, I used to attend all the planning board meetings because I was the liaison
Oh,
to
you
them.
were the liaison, wow.
And this was back when other folks were on that. None of the people that are currently on were on it. And I often thought that I would run right away for planning board, but then Bob Morse showed some interest in it. And so I kind of stepped aside a little. And I had taken out papers, but I had never returned them. So,
Yeah,
so it worked out good. And Bob turned out to be a great planning board person. So then when I came onto the planning board, I got to sit with Bob for a couple of years. So.
Oh, great, great. Any other committees you'd like to mention before we move on?
No, not really. I've been on the technology committee, the recent one that Paul set up. The first year that he had it, I was on it, and then I decided to get off because I was getting busy at work, and we were moving. We were in the process of moving the building, so I really had to devote my time to doing that.
Okay.
So.
And speaking of work, do you want to mention where you're working
Yeah, I
now, or
work-
what type of work? you're
Yeah,
doing?
I'm an IT specialist, and I work at Sonus Networks in Westford.
In Westford,
Right,
great.
right after you go by the Neshoba, you take a right. It's right there. So
Great.
I'm close enough to Chelmsford so I can get back in a few minutes, and if I ever have to do anything, that works out good.
Oh, that's
it's not
good
like
that
I'm
you're
working
close.
in
close by,
Boston
yeah.
or anything like that.
Yeah,
so.
nice, great.
Yep.
Well, thanks, Bob, for being
Thank
here
you for
again,
inviting me. I appreciate it.
And we also have my good friend Janet Askenburg with us tonight. How are you, Janet?
Good, how are you?
Good. It's also your 7th time on the show.
Oh,
How about
that's
that?
great.
Time's flying, right?
Yes, it is, isn't it?
Because you've been a school committee member now. You're finishing up your 3rd year, right?
That's
on
correct.
that? And you're also the chairman of the school committee and have been for 2 years now. It'll be that you'll have been chairman.
Correct.
Or chairwoman. And so this year you decided to run for the Chelmsford Board of Selectmen, which we'll
That's
talk
right.
about later on in the show.
Yes.
And so any other committees that you're on or that you'd like to mention, or would you like to mention the type of work that you're doing? It's up to you.
Sure. I'm currently a principal at Ryan LLC. We're a corporate tax consulting firm. We are the 7th largest accounting firm in the United States. I've also served for 3 years on the Economic Development Commission, where I was the vice chair. and served on the capital planning committee.
Wonderful. Yeah, I was with you on that committee last year,
Yeah,
remember?
that was fun.
We sat next to each other,
Yeah, absolutely.
and I looked on your paper all the time to cheat. No, I'm only kidding. It wasn't like school. Not that I cheated there.
I was wondering why you did so well.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being here, Janet.
Great. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate
I
it.
think we'll have a great show today. A lot of talking about what's going on in Chelmsford.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe if we could begin with Barbara, since we started the introduction
Sure,
with Barbara.
sure.
So, Barbara, you decided to run for school committee
Yep.
this year. Could you tell us why you decided to run this year?
Well, I think my reasons for running are the same as last year. You know, I have a lot of experience in the school system, and that's where my interest lies right now. So I've been approached several times to run for selectman. Maybe, but this is where I'm interested in giving my time. And I think that, you know, there's definitely always room for improvement. And, you know, I'm trying to hit the ground running. I've been meeting with Evelyn Thorne for quite a long time. We go over the policy manual, which she's written herself. We go over it line by line.
How big is the policy manual?
It's thick,
Very thick.
yes.
Oh.
And we turn the page and we go over the next page. And she can tell me the history of every word that she's written.
Wow, isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, it is
That she
wonderful.
knows it so well, I mean.
Yeah,
And she's doing an excellent job.
She is.
in revising that.
right.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
she's
great.
doing a fantastic job.
And you know what? You need someone who has that grasp of the history, who understands the policy, why it was written, when it was written, what are the issues at the time it was written. So I'm getting that background. And for a lot of it, for 14 years or so, I've been in this, so I understand what the issues are, you know.
Oh,
And
involved in this being the school
the school
type
system stuff, right.
Yes.
Barbara will be able to provide even a fresh perspective, even though you've been in it.
Right. I don't
Yeah.
know, you know, obviously the anything to do with negotiations because that is confidential. But I'm anxious to get involved in it. You know, I know we come out of that with they're exhausting sessions, and I'm hoping we can somehow facilitate some kind of collaboration with the teachers and the faculty in our schools. I just think we need to maybe shine that spotlight on them for a while because they work so hard, and we reap the benefits of that work.
And how's Chelmsford doing in the MCAS lately and all the tests?
I think Chelmsford does well. I know they had that Boston Globe article where we were 66 or something, but the criteria, and this drives me insane, the criteria is not necessarily based on grades and scores.
I agree. It wasn't.
No, so you know you have the W's doing very well in those testing, but those score I should say that those articles, but those articles aren't necessarily written to reflect, you know. I think one thing that I'd love to do, and I will get around to this, is getting some statistics or data on bang for the buck, because I think Chelmsford has to be very high up in the amount of money we pay per student and the education results we get out of it.
Yes.
And
I
again,
agree.
that's a reflection on the school committee for you know overseeing the budget that way, but also our teachers, who are unbelievable. You know, but every organization has some areas to improve, and we'll look into that. But you know, we're very, very fortunate here.
Yes. But speaking of the teachers, are you in favor at all of incentive pay for teachers for superior performance?
You know, you're talking about merit pay. I like that idea. I don't like the process that would bring it about. I'm cynical, and I want to know how you can do that and remain objective. You know, too many. Yeah, there's a lot that goes on behind it. I know some fantastic teachers, and I would hope they would get paid a lot of money.
Yeah.
But who's going to judge them?
Yeah.
And what's their incentive for judging them high or low? And
Yes.
you know, it's tricky.
Well, Barbara, what are your top priorities if elected? You will be, unless there's a huge write-in candidate.
I've done that write-in thing.
Oh, that's right. You're
Not
right.
easy.
It's not easy. No,
Not
it's
easy.
very
No.
difficult.
But I tell you, that was, and I think I mentioned it to you on election night, that was, to me, extremely impressive. That you got 1,500, I don't know if the number's 1,500, but
I don't
over
know.
1,500 people to write your name down.
Yeah.
Yes.
That,
I
that was
agree.
quite a,
We had a
that was
great
quite
group.
It was
tremendous.
amazing.
I think we
The
ran like a
campaign you
3-week
ran
campaign.
for
and
write-in. Oh my God.
yeah, it was
very difficult.
It was fun. I think if it had been any longer than 3 weeks, it wouldn't have been fun. But it was just every day, just pounding it out, and it was great.
And you weren't allowed to use stickers with your name on it, were you? Because I
We-
know when I was a write-in for town meeting rep one year, you weren't allowed to use stickers because they felt it would jam up the machines. So everybody wrote in my name, and I got tons of write-ins, but it was great. But it makes, I think you'll get less that way than if you could just give somebody a sticker and say,
Sure.
just put that in. But our town didn't allow that when I ran. Did they allow it when you ran?
Legally, they have to.
Right.
But
Well, they didn't when I was there, and they told me in no uncertain terms, you cannot do it. But that was our previous town clerk. But
Right.
I could give you a name of someone who could represent you, but again, you suffer no loss. So,
So in your case,
I spoke with the town clerk. She encouraged me not to and gave me the reasons, and we spoke as a committee, and we agreed that we did not want to jam the process.
okay, great. So you didn't.
So I have a lot
Literally.
of friends. Yes, I have a lot of
She
friends
did
who work
say-
at the polls, and they're like, "You're going to make our life miserable. You're making it miserable as it is."
Yeah.
Is a write-in.
Because it
So-
said they would, some might
yeah,
get
jams
jammed,
machines,
right? Yeah.
right.
So
we
Right.
came up with the idea of the business cards, and she was kind enough to allow us to hand those out. People could bring them in, write down my name, and just dispose of it as they left.
yeah.
So that was helpful.
Yeah, I'll never forget the police officer coming to me after that write-in, which I think is a little bit unfair. Some people would leave, I gave them a little handout with my name in it, and some people left it there.
Right.
The police officer comes out giving me a hard time about it.
Again,
And-
that I could give you her name,
Yeah,
someone to help you out,
and
but
I think that was improper, really.
it's not your
my
responsibility. It's the
responsibility.
poll,
I guess
the
people,
poll
bring it
workers.
out, don't leave things
Right.
there.
And that was an issue that came up, and
So yeah.
Mrs. Maloney said that that's the poll workers' job. They are to scan the poll
Yeah,
places
I
and
know.
remove all trash, and you can go out of that with a clear
Yeah.
conscience.
Well, anyway, I've been at town meeting rep for about 19 years. But it was just that one year when we didn't have enough candidates. I thought I'd let other people be a town meeting rep, and that year we didn't have enough. So that's why I wrote as a write-in candidate that
Yeah.
year. But usually I'm on the ballot every 3 years, and I've never missed a meeting in 19 years. So I just lucked out in that I've been healthy those nights. But I feel it's a very important job, and I admire every candidate that's out there, every town meeting rep who's out there.
And I have to say, you touched on it. Part of our, when everyone, we got together as a committee before making that decision to run last time, competition is good.
Yeah.
People, not that I don't mind running unopposed, but certainly I would have welcomed Mr. Wang to have joined the race. The more people who are out there talking about their views, and if someone has a great idea, let's hear it,
Yeah.
I don't.
Yes. And did you have any other top priorities that you want to mention, Barbara, before we move on?
I think I'll get the T-shirt that says collaboration and just make
Collaboration,
call that a
all
day.
right.
Yeah.
I love collaboration as
Yeah.
well, with everybody, and
Right.
I try to get along with everybody. That's why I've had having all the selectmen candidates on the show, all the school committee candidates, and everybody who wants to be on the show is always welcome on this show, because I love to collaborate with people, and I believe everybody has a right to their voice about the issues here in Chelmsford.
Absolutely.
And I feel only if we allow them to express themselves can we improve as a town and know what everybody's thinking.
Right. Well, Chelmsford went through that. Well, Massachusetts went through the grueling process of becoming a race to the top, district, and now we are instituting the park, so that and that requires some technology in the classroom. The students have to take their assessments online now on the computer, so it's going to be a challenge.
Yes.
But a collaboration is going to be necessary to get those great scores.
Well, thank you so much,
You're
Barbara,
welcome. You're welcome.
for now. Hopefully we could talk more during the show later on, but I wish you tremendous luck
Thank
in
you.
your race. And Evelyn was on the show last month, so everybody knows during the campaign season, I have the town-wide candidates on the show once, so it's very fair to everybody. And I wouldn't have somebody on twice and then somebody else just once. That wouldn't be fair to me. So anyway, Evelyn was on last month, you're on now, and so there's no other school committee candidates that are
Right.
official.
Yep.
If we have a write-in, I'll invite them. But
Yeah.
right now, there's no announced write-in candidate.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Barbara.
Thank you for having me.
And Bob, if we could maybe talk to you next. Bob,
Sure.
Joyce, candidate for selectman.
Yep.
So Bob, could you
military,
summarize a
would
little
they
bit
be
why you
interested in being
decided to
readers?
run for selectman this year?
Well, as you know, I did serve as selectman from '93 to '96, and I had seen a lot of changes over the years. The current board, not to berate them, and certainly not Pat, because she's been a voice for trying to control taxes for several years. But I think it's all about taxes, and I think people are upset over promises made, funds that are come back to the town as free cash and then earmarked to go to projects, and people aren't happy about things like that. So I bring to the table a little different voice. And anybody that knows me from my first term, and certainly as a member of the planning board, knows that I speak my mind. I don't, you know, I don't mince my words, okay? And you know, during my first term, I took some heat for some of the things, you know, that I did and some of the things I said. I always tell people that it's great running the first time because everybody loves you, but by the time you get done, half of the people hate you and half of the people like you still. And then
You realize I'm on the school committee, right?
yeah, and that switches depending upon what the issue is, because during my first term as a selectman, I would vote a certain way on something, and then this group would love me, and then I'd vote this way on a different thing, and they would hate me. The same people would hate me. So, but anyway, I just think I think the board tends to push off a lot onto the town meeting. I'm sorry, the town manager, and I think that part of the role of the Board of Selectmen is that they give direction to the town manager. So I'm not one of those people that feel that any town manager is what's Curlin's term, superstar, and I've always felt that that contracts between town managers and boards of selectmen should not be long ones, they should be short ones, because the makeup of the board changes and a lot of things in town change. So I felt that it was time for me to come back. It's been 20 years since I served, and I think I can bring definitely a different voice to the board that's sitting there now.
Well, not quite 20 years since you served, right? You left in
No, I
1996.
got elected in 93, and I'm running again, yeah.
So
it's
96
17
you left,
years.
yeah, about 17 years, yeah.
Right.
That's my mathematical mind, won't allow any mistakes, no.
Right, and
You know-
as we talk through the show, I can give you
I know.
examples of things where I don't think the Board of Selectmen were listening, and
Okay.
you know that.
Well, first, how about your top priority? Well, you might have just mentioned your
Yeah.
top priority. Well, how about one or two examples of where you don't think they're maybe one example for now, and we could come back, or one thing
Well,
you might want to mention
I
that they
think
weren't
that-
listening that well.
Yeah, I think that in the past several years, we have seen come back to the town about probably $1 million in free cash. And some of that money has been earmarked to work on the DPW. I don't know about you people, but when I voted for the DPW, I voted to buy that building so we could secure it. And I thought that it was going to be a subsequent vote to renovate it. Well, that's not the point at all. The other $8 million is going to be from free cash and capital. That's how it's going to be raised. So, and I think a lot of people were like me, thinking that, oh, we'll get another shot at this, and you know, be able to vote as we go along, and that's not happening. So,
Yeah.
so that's
thanks.
an example.
Well, thanks, Bob. Well, we'll come back and talk a lot about town issues after we introduce everybody, find out what's going on generally. But first, we talked with one of our select women here tonight, and thanks for being on the show tonight. If I could quickly mention why Pat is on the show tonight. People are wondering, Pat isn't a town-wide candidate. Why did I invite
I'm not a
Pat?
candidate at all.
No, I know, but we go this way.
Oh, I thought you were going to introduce Janet.
I think he's zigzagging.
No, I'm going zigzag. 'Cause
See, my mind doesn't work.
Okay, yeah, right. Because they get a one shot of Bob, and you know they probably had the camera on Bob, so that's why.
Oh, this is staging.
It's staging,
Got
yes,
it.
yeah.
Got it.
So, but we'll get to Janet, that's for sure. And so what happened was Pat Maloney was originally scheduled to be on the show tonight, so we'd have 3 selectmen candidates and a school committee candidate. But Pat has a personal issue, and it's not, you know, it's a family kind of health issue, and that's why he's not here tonight. But right now he's scheduled to be on the next show 2 weeks from tonight. So if anybody's wondering, that's why Pat Maloney isn't here. And then I thought, well, I want somebody who knows about these town issues that we might talk about on the show, and so that's why I invited Pat Wojtas with us tonight.
I thought you just wanted somebody named Pat.
Yeah, right.
That's a good one, Pat. But
Yeah.
yep, that way I didn't have to change on the TV.
That's right,
We
yeah.
could just change the last name and we're all set. Well, Pat, So Pat, could you tell us a couple of top issues before the Board of Selectmen at the moment? What's going on there that you think we should talk about a little bit?
Sure, there's a couple of things that probably haven't gotten a lot of press lately. One is the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments recently announced that they're awarding some funds to the town of Chelmsford for a strategic plan for Vinyl Square. As you know, a few years ago we completed a master plan for the entire town, and right now there's a committee doing a plan for Central Square, the Chelmsford Village Master Plan Committee, I believe it is. So NEMCOG awarded this money through direct local technical assistance funds that come from the state, and we're going to be creating a similar master plan committee for Vinyl Square to kind of decide some things that would make it work better, whether that's parking, better facades on the businesses there, better transportation, better infrastructure, whatever it might be. So anybody who's interested in serving on that committee, the town manager will be appointing that committee sometime next month, and taking applications for the next couple of weeks at least.
And to whom should they send the applications? I mean, would it be okay to go, for example, to you or to Paul Cohen or both?
Isn't that through the website?
Through the website.
I know they can go through the website
or
if they had,
yeah, I mean, a town
if they just had an email, like who should they send it to? If they just want to send a quick email?
Well, they should fill out the form.
They should go to the form, okay,
there
through
is
the
a form,
website.
and if they don't have email, they can go to town manager's office.
Okay,
there is a, they have the hard copy forms there you can fill out.
How many will be on the committee? Do
I
you have
believe
any idea?
7. I
About
believe 7.
Yeah?
I think that the plan is to have 1 selectman, maybe 1 planning board member, a couple of members of the business community in Vinyl Square, and then a few residents.
Great.
And I know a couple of residents that have already expressed an interest, so
Great.
it should be a good committee.
Wonderful.
So, looking forward to that. And like I
Yeah.
said, probably something that we haven't gotten a lot of press on that. So,
And before you mention another topic, or whatever, speaking of North Chelmsford, it reminds me of that we were going to have a train station stopping there, or at least hoping. Is there anything new with that? A train station maybe stopping in North Chelmsford? There may not be, but
Yeah.
I know it's been on the agenda of the state. We're trying to get them to do that for many years.
it would probably be a federal thing because it would be coming from New Hampshire. The idea would be to, there is a plan in place, but it's many, many, many years off, to possibly have a line that would go from Manchester through, by the Manchester airport and then Concord and Nashua, or the other way around. I don't know which one comes first, and then into Boston, and that would probably, we would hope that we would have a stop somewhere in North Chelmsford.
That would be great.
Now where it would be, that's a good question.
Yeah.
But until we get closer to it being finalized, there hasn't been a lot more talk about it. But since it's a 2-state thing, it would be a federal thing rather than a state thing.
Wonderful. Well, thanks. So what else at the Board of Selectmen would you like to mention? A kind of a top issue right now?
Yeah, another thing, like I said, that's we haven't gotten a lot of airtime, I guess, on it is a new committee that Matt Hansen and I have kind of launched. He and I are part of we are the policy subcommittee for the board, and we submitted a policy a few months back to create a civic committee. It's called Civic, C-I-V-I-C, for Chelmsford Initiative for Volunteerism in
Community.
whatever. All those words. Chelmsford and community and volunteerism are part of it. Yeah. So anyway, this committee, the goal of this committee is to try to recruit people who aren't that involved in the town for seats on committees that have openings, and even for committees that are full, that maybe some new blood would help them. I mean, it seems like you have the 400 or 500 insiders, so-called insiders in town. I'll use that number. I don't know if it's more or less than that.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of the same names in all the committees. And it's good to have some of that institutional knowledge and some of that background, but it's also good to have new people on any committee, whether it be the Board of Selectmen or the school committee or what.
Yes.
So our goal would be maybe to periodically, maybe twice a year or so, have like a tutorial where we would publicize it, and people who maybe are unsure what criteria you need to meet in order to be a member of a committee, what kind of education you need, what kind of work experience, things like that you might need, so we could answer all these questions. wouldn't be any silly questions. You know, somebody might say, well, you know, what's the dress code if you go to a committee, or how many meetings can you miss before you get kicked off? You know, things like that. Because I think there's three issues with why we sometimes don't have enough people. People don't understand all the committees that there are and what they do. People don't realize that you don't have to have specialized knowledge. You know, you see the Conservation Commission and somebody thinks, well, I have to be a civil engineer or something like that. You don't. I mean, as long as you have an interest in the town and you're willing to listen to what the issue is, and, you know, do your own homework and come up with what you think is the right solution, the right vote for any particular issue that comes before you, then you have the requirements. And then some people don't know how much the commitment is. And I think that's where a lot of it is. You know, some committees meet once a month for an hour and a half or 2 hours a month. And, you know, in most committees, you put into it what you want to. You know, it's not like you know, like on school committee, they say sometimes you have to figure on spending 30 hours a week working school committee. Well, you know, there's plenty of committees that you don't. I don't know. Uh-oh. It's going to change your mind.
Barbara didn't know that.
But as a requirement for being on committees, you should mention that they need to volunteer for the community read-in.
Yes, okay.
That's a basic requirement.
Okay. So anyway, so our goal is to try to recruit people for that, and also for elected office. Like Barbara said, it's so much better when you have contested races. I mean, I have never run a town-wide race that hasn't been contested. I would surely like to try it once or twice, but it's probably not likely to happen. But I think it brings out more information. People are more informed, and you know, you not only have more choices, but you really know what you're getting when you do have those choices.
Yes, I think it's a great idea, Pat.
So that's what the Civic Committee is trying to do, to increase volunteerism, not just volunteerism, but, you know, for the you know, for elected offices also.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So.
Well, we'll talk about some other issues that the Board of Selectmen have a lot to do with later on in the show. So, Pat, we'll talk more. Thank you.
All right.
Janet Askenburg, so could you tell us why you decided to run for the Board of Selectmen this year, Janet?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe my business experience in my past 3 years on the Chelmsford School Committee, especially the last 2 as the chair, my work on the Economic Development Committee, and also on the Capital Planning Committee. I think that makes me a good candidate, actually a great candidate for the Board of Selectmen, and you know, I feel I'm prepared for it, and I look forward to serving.
Wonderful. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, but some people might not have seen it, there's 5 candidates this year running for selectmen for 2 seats on the board.
Yes.
And Bob Joyce is also here tonight, so you and Bob are 2 of the candidates. I had Roland Van Loo on my last show, and I had Matt Hansen on in a January show while we're all in the campaign season, and then Pat Maloney hopefully will be on our next show. So I'll have had all 5 selectmen candidates on once during the campaign season to be fair to everybody. Janet, could you tell us what your top priorities are if elected?
Absolutely. My first priority would be tax relief. Just yesterday, I met with the chairman of Board of Selectmen of another town that I've been looking at. I've been looking across Massachusetts and looking at towns where their tax rate has not gone up perhaps as quickly as Chelmsford has. And that's one of the towns I looked at, so I called the chair of the Board of Selectmen there, and we met, and you know, he has some great ideas. You know, I was talking about what are some of the ideas, what have you done to help keep that tax rate down? And so anyways, you know, investigating that, and also one of the priorities would certainly be to fill the vacancy rate on commercial industrial space. We're currently at about 20% vacancy, and I'd love to see us put together a 3 to 5 year strategic plan, if you want to call it that the Board of Selectmen would ultimately be held accountable, I think, to meet that target, whether it's, you know, a 10% vacancy rate, you know, 5%, whatever that is. But I think that would force the Board of Selectmen, the town manager, Evan Belansky, Director of Community Development, the Planning Board, and it would really force us all to work together to find out what it is that we need to do to become truly business friendly and, you know, you know, help get companies into this town, and mostly help keep companies, you know, to stay here, you know, and expand their businesses, because that would increase our revenues. You know, what is it? Local businesses would be able to hire local people. We wouldn't have to travel out of town for jobs. They'd be eating at our restaurants, you know, shopping at our stores, and I think it'd be win for everybody in the community. And I'd also love to continue to focus. I think we've done a great job as a community preserving open space, and I'd love to continue that as well.
Wonderful. Well, thanks, Janet, and best of luck to you and to Bob and to Barbara in your campaigns this year.
I'm feeling lucky this
Barbara, yeah, Barbara probably doesn't have as much little pressure in a sense, but it should be great, and I'm looking forward to whatever candidate nights we have this year. And I think the CBA usually is the first Thursday of March, and that's coming up very soon, and I'm looking forward to that very much. And as far as I know, all the 5 selectmen candidates are going to be there this year. And are you invited? They probably haven't sent out invitations.
If they have, I haven't received it, but it's not the first time I haven't been
We
invited
haven't
to a
got
party. So.
Okay, so I guess they haven't sent them out yet. But
Yeah.
usually it's the first Thursday in March at the Radisson.
Yeah.
So
Uncontested, they may ask you for a 30-second
statement or something.
yeah, or
Right.
2-minute or whatever. Yeah. Well, why don't we talk about a few issues in town, and why don't we talk informally, so I won't call on everybody, but we could just have a nice conversation like you're in my living room and 3 cats are crawling all over you. Well, something that's going on right now is a new fire station, and it's in the design phases. They might start actually constructing it later this year. Bob, being on the planning board, knows all about the details in that. So what do we think about this new fire station that's coming up right next to the town offices on Bill Ricker Road, as everyone knows?
Well, I've been misinterpreted throughout this whole fire station issue, and that is that I don't want a fire station. That's not true. We need a fire station. In fact, when I served the first time, we needed a fire station, because there were signs at that time of the floor going south on us, okay? But to be very honest with you, and I've made I have not avoided admitting that I don't like where it's going. And as a result, the neighbors, I've got very involved with the neighbors, and I think they were kind of blindsided during the whole process. But and in proposing the new building, I was hoping that they would propose something that was really nice. And my opinion is that it's not nice. It's one of the ugliest buildings we'll ever build. And I've gone out and looked at a lot of fire stations and looked online at a lot of fire stations, and this is just a box, a square box with 5 doors. And I think, you know, part of it is they're trying to do it as cheap as they can do it. So that's certainly an issue. But in trying to reach out to the neighbors, I know Paul has appointed, Paul Cohen, the town manager, has appointed two neighbors to be on the committee. But they really haven't had a great effect on what the building looked like. The first time we really heard about any issues with what it looked like was the planning board. And there were issues at that first meeting with parking, and quite honestly, with all those employees are now going to park down on the lower part near the ballparks. They have to leave and go out through Chelmsford Street, right next to Lucia Insurance. And as far as I'm concerned, that's a nightmare to get out of. You certainly can't turn left, and if you're turning right at 4:30 in the afternoon, you've got the traffic backed up from Fletcher Street. So there's a lot of issues there. They came in and they've come with a proposal to have more parking alongside of where the ball field is, next to Lucia's Insurance there. Yeah. That wasn't originally in the plan.
I see, yeah.
So, but the whole reason they didn't want to put the fire station on the lower part of that lot was because they had an issue with traffic getting in and out.
Yes.
So now we've got the same issue.
Yeah.
You can't put a light there because it's too close to the other light.
Yeah.
I suggested the other night that maybe we should do a right turn only.
Yeah.
But the queuing time can be very long there, and they're basically, you know, just saying, oh no, it's not going to be that bad. But if this were a private developer, we would hold their feet to the fire to make sure that queuing was better.
Yes.
So that's the biggest issue I have with the fire station.
Yeah.
Right now.
Well, at our Support Our Town coffee last week, I was speaking to Pat Maloney, and I don't know if Pat or anybody else talked to him about, in terms of the traffic light that you're talking about, and getting out onto Chelmsford Street. He said a resident came in, an abutter of the new fire station, and he said he had an idea that seems very interesting, which is to have go into the traffic light, which is already there on Fletcher Street, and the Little League traffic light, and build a nice road there. You know, maybe take some of that land there for Little League fields, so that the traffic would go out at that light where you're by Fletcher Street.
That's a good alternative, by the way, but Little League is a very difficult organization to deal with. And a lot of people in town don't know it, but they have like a 99-year lease that is locked tight, which says that if we take anything from them, if we take their field, we have to replicate it somewhere else and build it to their specs. So what turned out to be you know, a good faith thing of maybe 30 years ago, letting them use that plot of land, now puts a liability on us because we don't have the ability to do things like that. But that would be an excellent solution. We'd have a four-way stop.
So maybe Pat, we'll talk about that in the next show, because he must know about the 99-year lease, right? About the
I'm sure he does. Yeah, because Paul's aware of it. The selectmen are all aware of it.
I'm sure he's aware,
Well, any other thoughts about the fire station?
Well, I mean, you know, I hear, you know, Bob's concerns, and I think the Permanent Building Committee is working with the abutters and with, you know, with the town in general as far as addressing many of those. And I feel that this is a good solution for where the building is going to be. And you know, I guess I understand the concern about the aesthetics of it, but we do want something that's not going to cost a lot. We don't want something that people are going to call a Taj Mahal, which they have on some other buildings that have been, you know, built in town, as you're well aware. So I think we do want to be aware of the costs of it and try to keep those within, you know, we're building it without having an override, which I think is commendable. I'm glad we were able to do that. So I'm looking forward to, you know, to what it's going to look like, and you know, I think the concerns will be addressed and will be worked out as best as they can. I mean, it's never going to be perfect, you know. We know that for sure, that it's never going to be perfect, but we'll, you know, going to do the best we can to make it all work.
Any other thoughts about the?
I mean, at the end of the day, the you know, this is where the fire station's going to go, and you know, maybe not everybody is happy with that. But my experience has been that if people feel like they're part of the process and the neighbors are being listened to and people are able to submit their ideas and it's a well thought out process, you know, people can at least feel like they were respected and then they can buy into the solution. So I hope that we do take our time, we don't try to rush it because, you know, we're trying to meet some kind of building deadline as far as, well, we need to break ground by this date, so let's hurry and make a decision. Because, like you just said, someone had a great idea, well, let's do this. Well, that's a great idea, but it's really not feasible. So, again, I hope we can slow down just a little bit, take our time, try not to rush, and create a fire station that ultimately we'll be proud of.
I agree. That's absolutely. But we tend to, the Permanent Building Committee, as well as Paul, tends to push the envelope and get things done fast. So I don't know if that's.
But that's where I think.
But our process with the planning board, certainly, you know, we don't want to look like antagonists or that we're slowing anything down. But we are putting them through the same criteria we put the private developers through. So.
Absolutely.
As you should.
And that's your job. And I think us as citizens, if we feel like it is being rushed, perhaps that's where we need to voice our concerns and say, you know, please slow this down a little bit. Let's make sure that it's a very thoughtful process.
Right.
I
agree.
Were you going to say something about the
No, I was just curious, in all this process, what's your opinion of both of you, your opinion of the town manager?
Oh, I just answered that last week.
Oh, I missed it.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I don't get any local papers.
You want to?
Oh, okay. No, actually, I think I think Paul's doing a very good job. I think his heart is in Chelmsford, even though he doesn't live here, which to me is a really a big deal. But I think he does, he makes his decisions based on what he believes is the right answer for Chelmsford. What I would like to see more of is the Board of Selectmen giving direction to the town manager and holding him accountable for goals.
Do you think that is just, you have someone you're secure in their abilities and you kind of get lulled into that? He might be, you know what I mean? When you have someone who's running something very well, having served on board of directors and such, you have someone who's running it very well, you have a certain level of comfort, and you don't maybe perhaps question them as much. But like you said, shame on you for not, questioning everything.
And it's not really questioning him. For example, the school committee with Dr. Tiano, the superintendent. We ask a lot of questions in the meetings, and that doesn't mean we question his abilities. He's on a performance compensation plan. He has very clear goals. We set the direction, and then, he carries that out. And, he's not insecure about that, and he understands that as a professional, that's his job. And what we really love is he really embraces that. There's great communication. By the way, you're going to love the school committee. I'm actually going to miss it. It's just such a wonderful group, and it's so collaborative.
30 hours a week.
No, it's not 30 hours. You're a professional if you know how to get it done. So, but anyways, that's something I'd like to see more of from the Board of Selectmen. Please don't take that as any kind of criticism.
If I could address that. I think you don't see some of the interaction that goes on with the board members and Paul. I think he is very responsive, and myself, I meet with him probably every other month or so with, I collect, every time I go to an event, whether it be a town coffee or the Veterans Breakfast at the Senior Center, somebody will come up to me and, like you said, Bob, when you used to own a shop in town, why can't you do this? What about this? And I keep a list, and I go talk to Paul periodically about that, rather than do it in a public meeting, because a lot of the things are very individual. Like somebody wants a crosswalk here or a stop sign here. So he is very responsive in that regard. And as far as maybe asking more during meetings, we cover so many different topics. We range everything from setting up the town meeting to doing appointments and everything else. So I think we want to keep a lot of those discussions more one-on-one, because it does affect people that we know individually. So maybe you don't see a lot of the interaction and a lot of the accountability that we do.
Okay, but as a citizen, I should see that, and I believe I should see that in an open session.
Right.
I would like to see, I can understand if there's a, some kind of private matter, but I do believe with the school committee, we have very few private discussions, unless it has to do with like a personnel matter, but everything is out there. We'll say at the meeting, hey, listen, I was approached by a parent, and I'm just telling you as their advocate that they'd like to see this. And we say that out in the open. And then we add that as an action item at that meeting. And Dr. Triano says, I will follow up with that parent directly. And then at the next meeting, we'll even ask, did you follow up with the parent? He'll go, absolutely, yes, I did. And that's not questioning him. But all of that, I mean, that's the purpose of an open meeting law, is business should be conducted out in the open.
If there were 5 of us talking to him, I would agree with you. But if it's one-on-one, I guess that's just a philosophical difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think as far as Paul goes, I said earlier, I don't think he's a superstar. I think he's a good town manager, and I think he probably makes the job of the selectman easier. He does tend to take things personally. For instance, if I get up, as you know, I've appeared before the Board of Selectmen many times in open session, he gets very defensive. And I know this is something that's been talked about during his reviews and stuff, and Pat doesn't always give him a great review neither, and I give her credit because, no one's perfect.
You have to give honest feedback.
Yeah, and I know that, some of the members on that board just think that he's, just absolutely walks on water. And I worked with Bernie Lynch. I mean, he was the original walk on water, But no, I think Paul, does a lot of things well. But I'd like to see the board more involved in some of those things. And I understand what Pat's saying. You can't always, discuss everything at length. And during this year, I know John Curlin has certainly worked on getting the meetings shorter, and he's done that. And you know, one of the things he's done this year, which I'm not happy about, I don't know if you're going to bring it up, but the not having the candidates in. I mean, that goes back to before I was on the board 20 years ago.
Yeah.
That goes back to Dennis Reddy days. So anyway, I think Paul, among all the town managers around, he's one of the best.
And we've been very fortunate. I mean, we've had a lot of stability in that position.
Yes, we have.
Yeah, we've only had 2 town managers, right?
That's pretty tremendous,
Mhm.
you know. So it says a lot for the Board of Selectmen to work well with the town manager they're working with.
Yes.
But like you said, I think some of those discussions would be better on paper, or at least minutes,
Right.
you know, transparency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one other, if you don't mind, one other thing I'd like to see, and maybe you can provide some insight as to maybe why it doesn't happen, is, for example, the school committee, something we've insisted upon and happens now. Well, I shouldn't say we insisted upon, again, they gladly provided this. But every month, we have a monthly condition of accounts. So on a line item basis, we look at that budget, and we want to report what is going on with the budget. Do we have any concerns? Do we see, you know, any that aren't going to be fully funded at the end of the year? Do we see any going over budget? And that way, at the end of the year, there aren't any surprises. And honestly, on the town side, I'm always a little surprised when all of a sudden we hear, "Hey, we got $1 million left over." It's like, really? Did you not see that coming? I mean, that's that's great news, but that's something I'd like to see, because I would think if we start seeing that happening, we can start planning for that sooner rather than later and start having those discussions. Hey, great, great news. Preliminarily, we could see we may have $750,000 to $1 million, $750,000 to $1 million left over at the end of the year. Let's start having some discussions about where we could strategically invest that, rather than this last minute almost argument we seem to have.
Well, why not give it back to the taxpayers?
Well,
Absolutely,
right.
but see, those discussions need to happen collaborating with the town, all the different departments, and having that discussion rather than just 1 or 2 presentations or discussions by the Board of Selectmen, and then it's a done deal, and we're told that's where the money's going to go.
When we come to town meeting.
Yeah.
Well, you're never told. I mean, town meeting does get the vote on it, so
Right.
But we do get updates monthly from the town accountant on where the status of the accounts are.
And that's in open session?
No, that's just an email. And if there's something, I mean, don't laugh. I mean, if there's
I have to laugh because I find it funny.
That should be posted, don't you
I'm
think?
not laughing at you. I just find that a little humorous because, again, that comes to, as a citizen, I'd like to see that.
Well, it is available.
Okay.
I don't know if it's actually posted on the website. If you do have to request it, but it definitely can be posted on the website.
It should be.
And if there's something that needs to, our attention should be drawn to, it is. As far as the numbers coming at the end of the year, and you have $750,000 or $1 million, it's a cumulative on all the departments. So it's hard to tell where you might, some of the things are seasonal. We don't know what's going to happen with the snow and ice.
Right.
So it's tough on that. We don't know what might happen with insurance. We know what might happen with some other unexpected events through the year.
But I mean, you could say that on the school committee or on the school system side as well, and looking at that line item budget. We could be saying, listen, with special education, which is a big part of that budget, we're not sure where we're going to be, but at least we can, on a month-by-month basis, we're following that, and we're getting some advice from the business manager. So I know you're saying on a cumulative basis, it may be hard to tell, but not actually. If you're looking at the line item, you're tracking where each department is with their budget at any given time, and I think that's important. I mean, you do that at home, right? So why wouldn't you do that in business as well?
I'd like to do what Gross, who's the treasurer? Grossman or
Steve Grossman, yes.
Grossman, and that's
Good guy.
put everything online.
Yeah.
So that if people want to see, for instance, I want to know how much money it cost us to take the lines up on High Street, and then on Byam that nobody ever heard about, but they
I would
also
like to know too.
they also lined Byam by mistake. And then right outside here, when they chopped down all the trees, how much more did that cost us? A lot of that stuff falls by the wayside and nobody Nobody knows what it is.
You don't know, Pat, do you? The answer to any of those?
Well, I did know that. I mean, on the lines. Yeah, I mean, Paul did tell us what that number was. I don't know it right offhand. You're right. I mean, but that's kind of a different issue. That's kind of more how somebody tells somebody what should be done.
That's a management issue.
That's a management issue. Exactly right.
Right.
Those things should never have happened.
Speaking of management issues, what is the big change in the DPW? They handled that blizzard like nobody's business.
Well, I think a big part of it was the governor,
Yeah.
telling everybody to stay home and stay off the roads. That was
Absolutely.
huge.
But Chelmsford,
Planning.
we were
Yeah.
open for business Monday morning. All the other towns around us were not.
Yeah.
They had delays and cancellations, and
I
I
think
don't
some
know
of
why they did, quite frankly. I
well,
mean,
Lowell, I can understand they have walkers.
that was
Yeah.
my understanding with some communities like Waltham as well, and I know a lot of the North Shore, for a lot of the same reason. We have people in our office from like Lynn and
Yeah.
And they get hit
Marblehead
hard.
area.
They get hit hard, too.
Yeah,
Up in Linden.
Right.
Marblehead, the limos
But
couldn't get through.
It was awesome. They did a great
Yeah,
job.
they did do a very good job, right. And I think a big part of it was that they were able to get out and without being impeded by cars,
Right.
like crazy people that think they have
I
to
thought
be
maybe
out.
there was a big change in management or something in that.
No.
No, it was awesome.
Yeah,
It really was.
Yeah,
No, they
I
did.
agree.
They
Poor
did a
Tom,
good job.
you're dying to
I'm
go
sorry.
on, aren't you?
Well, yeah, but it looks like we may not have time to get into another topic. So for the
Wow.
time being, yeah, I know our time has flown by. I hope you all had a good time so far anyway.
Wow.
We have like
No.
2 minutes left.
Oh, okay.
But I want to know about campaign parties and things like that. Janet, do you have a campaign party coming up?
Yes, it's a Friday night, March 15th, at Princeton Station from 6 to 10 p.m.
Yeah.
And would love everyone to be there.
Great. And could you tell us what the ticket prices are?
Well, it's a $10 suggested donation.
Suggested, yeah.
It's not mandatory, and I can certainly, if someone would like to donate more, that's certainly
yeah.
accepted as
Yeah.
well.
Great, great. I'm going to all the parties, so
Yep.
let me
yeah.
know. I'm the party guy of Chelmsford.
Campaign season's always very fun, isn't
Oh,
it?
yeah, and very busy for
Yeah.
me. It was going to all these things and the fundraisers too. We have a big one with the Chelmsford Open Space Stewards this Saturday night
Yep.
at the North Town Hall Community Center, beginning at 6 p.m. $25 per ticket. The Chelmsford Open Space Stewards do a wonderful job, so hopefully everybody who possibly can make it that night, I hope to see you there. Bob, do you have a campaign
Well,
party?
in light of where everybody else's is, I haven't set one yet, but I will by the end of the week.
Great.
Probably be the Saturday or the Sunday after
Great. Janet's?
Janet's.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And by the end of the week, I'll have my website up, which is electbobjoyce.com.
Oh, great. electbobjoyce.com. And Janet, do you have one?
JanetAskenburg.com.
Nice, very easy to remember. Barbara, I know you have a group on Facebook.
Yes, and we did very well in fundraising last year and have a nice little war chest, but it's only going to pay for a roll of duct tape because we're using our signs over, we're just covering over right in.
Good,
So
good.
black duct
Oh, I'm
tape.
glad, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to reuse, recycle.
Don't waste money, that's
Yeah.
my theory, along with everybody who's a fiscal conservative.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much, Barbara, for being here
Thank
again.
you for having me, Tom.
And thanks for running again. I really appreciate it, as I'm sure all the citizens do of Chelmsford. Pat, thank you very much for
Thanks
being
for
on the
having
show
me.
again and serving as a member of the Board of Selectmen so studiously and diligently. Thank you. Thank you very much, Bob Joyce, for being here again, and good luck with the campaign. Please let us know about the party and post it on Facebook as soon
will.
as you can. Thank you very
been a
much,
pleasure.
Janet Askenburg.
Thank
Good
you.
luck. Good luck with the campaign.
Great,
and,
thank you.
I think it was a very interesting show. I mean, the time just flew by, and I didn't get to all the topics, but that's
can't
good
believe it.
because
know.
we
We
had
went
some
through an
good
hour already.
conversations going, and that's what I like to see.
Really disappointed we didn't hit the grinder pump.
Oh, yeah, because I do have
Really
some
look-
insight into that
really
because I was
looking
on the
forward to
sewer
that.
commission.
Yeah. Were you really, or you no?
Not at
Oh,
all.
okay. Oh, not at all. Well, thank you.